صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم ترى كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل ألم يجعل كيدهم في تضليل وأرسل عليهم طيرا أبابيل ترميهم بحجارتهم من سجيل فجعلهم كعصف مأكول. صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. إن شاء الله. Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Hello?
Hey, Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, inshallah. Okay, then I'm going to restart with, I recited Surah Al-Fil. Inshallah, we'll be starting with Ziyad Ashura then. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا خيرة الله وابن خيرته، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور، السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار يا أبا عبد الله، لقد عدمت الرزية وجلت وعدمت المصيبة بك علينا وعلى جميع أهل الإسلام، وجلت وعدمت مصيبتك في السماوات على جميع أهل السماوات، ولعن الله أمة أسست أساس الظلم والجور عليكم أهل البيت، ولعن الله أمة دفعتكم عن مقامكم وأزالتكم عن مراتبكم التي أتاكم الله فيها، ولعن الله أمة قتلتكم، ولعن الله ممحدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم، برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشيائهم وأتباعهم وأوليائهم يا أبا عبد الله، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة، ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان، ولعن الله بني أمية قاتبة، ولعن الله ابن مرجان، ولعن الله عمر بن سعد، ولعن الله الشمر، ولعن الله أمة أسرجت وألجمت وتنقبت لقتالك، بأبي أنت وأمي، بأبي أنت وأمي، بأبي أنت وأمي لقد عدم مصابي بك، فأسأل الله الذي أكرم مقامك وأكرمني بك أن يرزقني طلب طارق مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله، اللهم اجعلني إنك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة، يا أبا عبد الله إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءة ممن قاتلك ونسب لك الحرب، وبالبراءة ممن أساس ظلم والجور عليكم، وأبراء إلى الله وإلى رسوله ممن أساس ذلك وبنى عليه بنيانا وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشيائكم، برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم وأتقرب إلى الله ثم إليكم بموالاتكم وموالاة وليكم، وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناسبين لكم الحرب، وبالبراءة من أشيائهم وأتباعهم، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم، إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم، وولي لمن والاكم وعدو لمن عاداكم، فأسأل الله الذي أكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة، وأن يثبت لي عندكم قدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة، وأسأله أن يبلغني المقام المحمود لكم عند الله، وأن يرزقني طلب الطارئ مع إمام هدى ظاهر ناطق بالحق منكم، وأسأل الله بحقكم وبشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يؤتيني بمصابي بكم أفتل ما يؤتي مصابا بمصيبته، مصيبة ما أعلمها وأعلم رزيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع السماوات والأرض، اللهم اجعلني في مقامي هذا ممن تناله منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة، اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد، اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو أمية وابن عاقلة الأكباد اللعين ابن لعين على لسانك ولسان نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله في كل موطن وموقف وكفى فيه نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله اللهم العن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية عليهم منك لعنة أبد العابدين. وهذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فداعف عليهم اللعنة منك والعذاب الأليم. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقفي هذا وأيام حياتي بالبراءة منهم ونعنة عليهم وبالموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. اللهم الآن أول ظالم ضرم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخرة بأنه على ذلك. اللهم الآن الإصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابت على قتله. اللهم العنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بكيت وبكي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر أحد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خص أنت أول ظالم اللعن منه وابدأ به أولا ثم عن الثانية والثالثة والرابعة. اللهم لن يزيد خامسة ولن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجان وعمر بن سعد والشمر وآل أبي سفيان وآل زياد وآل مروان إلى يوم القيامة. I'd recommend you to say this in prostration. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم. الحمد لله على عظيم رزيتي. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين يوم الورود وثبت لي قدم صدق إنك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا محجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. صلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Inshallah, next we're going to be having recitation of a lecture by Shk Jafar Muhibullah. If we can all recite aloud, Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If we can, before that, also recite a Surah Fatiha for our sponsors for tonight, the marhum of our sponsors of tonight, Mirza Mansoor Hassan Beg, Mirza Amir Hassan Beg, Sayyid Hamid Akbar, Sayyid Nazir Hussain Bukhari, Sayyid Sadiq Hussain Rizvi, Mirza Masr Beg, Amna Begu, Shah Jahan Begum, Meher Jahan, Khurshid Akbar, Sayyid Siddiq Bukhari, Narjis Iqbal, marhum of Dr. Mansoor Hassan Beg. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Inshallah, with that, we'll be giving the lecture to
Sadiq, can you hear me? Sadiq,
yeah.
this is Raza. Just before the speech, I'd like a couple of minutes. I would like to share my screen and just want to provide a quick update on the membership drive and the fundraising that we did on Ashura Day. So it will just take a couple of minutes.
Sorry,
I'm going to share my screen and just a couple of slides. So I cannot share right now. Somebody has to give me permission for sharing. If RF or whoever is running it needs to allow me to share. Otherwise, I can just speak.
I'm messaging our phone controller.
Okay. Okay, looks like I can share now. Okay, so I have prepared just a couple of slides and very quickly. Quick updates. This is more on basically when we reach out to you. This is more like the community reached out to us when the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown started. Some community members reached out to us and suggested that we set up a fund, basically to help our community members who are distressed because of COVID-19. So that fund was set up, and different contributors contributed about $21,000 roughly. Of those, $41,000 have been used. And again, this was provided to the community members as per Zaya Hasana. And this is not part of the general funds. And this is, but certainly something we wanted to share with you, because again, this idea came from you. And we basically think that we started a good thing, and we could continue this and basically raise a fund which is kind of a rotating fund, because as I said, this is Qarz-e Hasana. We expect, inshallah, when people will be in better situation, they'll be able to contribute themselves. And and that's basically, we want you to provide your feedback, how you want us to improve this thing. So this was that. And then the next one is we did the fundraising on Shab Ashur. At that time, I set up a target of $60,000 to be raised. And alhamdulillah, with the help of community members, I am happy to report that we exceeded that number. And we are at 74,000. At that time, Wali Bhai made it sure that basically 60K is not the target for the whole year. This was a modest target that I set so that we can achieve it. And we did, inshallah, mashallah, achieve it. There was another target, which is I really want to have at least 100 members, 100 families to be members. So far, again, this I think is an improvement over previous years. But at this time, we are at 66. So here is a simple pitch, and this is just going to take very quick information. So let's meet the target. The target, again, is 100 or more. And right now, I say that we are 34 away from the target. We are also, for the remaining year, 74 have been raised. We would like to raise 26,000 more. And most of it can be done, a lot of it can be done through membership. But again, if individuals contribute a little bit more than that, then inshallah we can raise 26,000. Key information, and just basically you have the number. This is my number, 248-464-4945. I am Mirza Raza. I am the current president of Libat Association. And I would like you to text me, WhatsApp, or text, just regular text. Let me know if you want to renew your family membership or a singles membership. And if you are able to contribute beyond that, beyond $350 or $250, if you want to contribute beyond that, just let me know how much, and then I can follow up after that. So this is the key message. This is the number on the screen, 248-464-4945. Inshallah, the key thing is I want to get this 34 or more families as members, as paying members. So inshallah, with this, I'm going to end it. Again, remember this number, 248-464-4945. I'm going to put that in the chat section also. So throughout the majlis, inshallah, when you get this message, please come forward and sign up for membership. Let me know, and I can follow up with you after the program or through this year, inshallah. That's it. I'll stop sharing, and inshallah, we'll start with the speech from Shk Jafar Muhibullah.
Thank you so much for the update. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم به نستعين الحمد لله الذي جعل الحمد مفتاحا لذكره وسببا للمزيد من فضله ودليلا على آلائه وعظمته ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أرواحنا له فداء. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن جاءكم فاسق بنبأ فتبينوا أن تصيبوا قوما بجهالة فتصبحوا على ما فعلتم نادمين. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First and foremost, I give my condolences to each of you on the occasion which we are commemorating, and that is the aftermath of Karbala, the shahadat of Imam Hussein, his companions Ahlul Bayt, alayhim afdal salatu wasalam, and the imprisonment of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, the women and children of the Ahlul Bayt, alayhim afdal salatu wasalam. In these past nights, we have discussed the personality types that Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam has outlined in Sermon 32 of Nahjul Balagha. These personality types which existed during his time, also in the time of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, and continues to exist in our own time. Today we'll speak about the third personality type that Imam Ali outlines. We've spoken about the aggressive personality type, the passive-aggressive personality type, and today we'll speak about the opportunist, the person that Imam Ali alayhi describes as one who is taking advantage of the situation, and particularly as Imam Ali, he frames it a time of social political strife, a time of social political unrest, and at times confusion. So the opportunist makes or takes advantage of that time period, takes advantage of what is happening socially, perhaps for their own agenda or to support a particular ideology or agenda. And this is a quality that many different personality types have. Of course, the two personality types that we mentioned that should perhaps be at our forefront is the extrovert and the introvert. The extrovert being a very sociable person who likes to socialize, like to engage with other people, and the introvert who likes to be alone or is shy at times or likes to be with small groups. So in either case, they both can be opportunist. As we mentioned that these general personality types can include other types as well. One type may be stronger than the other. But the opportunist is someone who sees an opportunity, takes advantage of it. And it's not always a negative thing. To take advantage of opportunities can be something good. Imam Ali alayhi has this very beautiful statement. He says, "Al-fursatu tamurru marra sahab," that opportunities move like a cloud. Again, if we look up into the sky and we see the clouds don't stay stagnant. And likewise, opportunities come and go. So we have to make sure that we are folks who are taking advantage of proper or correct types of opportunities. To give an example, one of our great scholars who lived in the latter part of the 19th century in Iran, this is during the reign of Emir Kabir, so someone who knows about the Iranian history of that period. You know, Emir Kabir was someone who was considered a reformist, someone who was trying to take the society in a better direction, more spiritually, more wholesome. So one of our great scholars who lived during that time, by the name of Sheikh Abdul Hussein Tehrani, was a very knowledgeable scholar. However, he was also very poor. He lived in poverty, and he was in a lot of debt. One of his friends had encouraged him. He says, "Why don't you go to this majlis where there was the dhikr of Ahlul Bayt, there was remembrance of Ahlul Bayt, the lifestyle of Ahlul Bayt." So he went to this majlis to benefit because it was known to be like one of the renowned scholars at the time. He was delivering these sermons, and he wanted to go and to benefit. So Sheikh Abdul Hussein Tahrani, he went. And after the majlis was finished, the scholars, they sat down amongst each other and they engaged in discussion. Sheikh Abdul Hussein Tahrani, he also went and he sat among the scholars. Again, he was someone who was learned, he had studied within the houses, so again, naturally, he sat among the scholars and listened to their discussion. At one point in their discussion, there arose an issue in which the scholars, they began to debate, and they had a lot of differences on that particular issue. Sheikh Abdul Hussein Tahrani, he saw this as a fursa, a moment, that he can also enter into the discussion. Because he apparently knew about this topic, he perhaps researched the topic, and he had a very good idea about the topic. So Sheikh Abdul Hussein, he entered into the conversation with very strong and sound proof. He solved the issue in which the scholars, they were debating. These scholars were more well known than Sheikh Abdul Hussein Tahrani. He wasn't really known within that circle, but he resolved this issue. When Sheikh Abdul Hussein, he returned home, one of the servants of Amir Kabir came to his door, knocked on his door, and asked for Sheikh Abdul Hussein Tahrani. And the servant announced himself that he was Amir Kabir's servant, and that Amir would come to his home. So Sheikh Abdul Hussein, he thought, he was like, well, you must be mistaken, because he had no connection, nor did he know Amir Kabir personally. The servant said, no, this is the home I was told to come to. And then he asked, he says, are you the scholar who sat and you solved the issue that the other scholars were debating about? So Sheikh Abdul Hussein, he says, well, yes, I am that person. So the servant said that then I have the right place, and Amir Kabir will be here tomorrow, the next day. So it said that Sheikh Abdul Hussein, he began to scramble to try to prepare his home, his humble home, for the person who was the head of the government at that time to come to his home, and prepared a very humble type of offering of some tea and maybe some fruits. So as Amir Kabir, he arrived at the home of Sheikh Abdul Hussein Tahrani, again, he saw the very humble abode of Sheikh Abdul Hussein, engaged with him, and understood the debt that Abdul Hussein Tahrani was in. At that point, Amir Kabir, he offered to pay the debt of Sheikh Abdul Hussein Tahrani. He paid his debt and moved him out of that house that was a very humble home, a home of the fuqara, and took him to a better place in a better neighborhood and bought that home. And it was all with a purpose, because Amir Kabir wanted him to be one of the teachers, to teach and to educate people. So he was appointed by Amir Kabir to be a teacher. There was a masjid that was built, told him to run the masjid and make sure he educates people about Islam, about Islamic law, about the Islamic aqaid and belief. So we see here that Sheikh Abdul Hussein Tahrani, again, made good use of that opportunity, the opportunity that came upon him. Sometimes we also expect an opportunity. It's natural as we plan out our life, or we plan to engage in something, but it is not such that those opportunities will come to fruition. As Imam Ali, he stated, وَلَا كُلُّ فُرْصَةٍ تُصَابُ. Imam Ali, again in Nahjul Balagha, one of his words of wisdom, the pearls of wisdom, he says that it is not such that every opportunity that you're expecting or that you're hoping in will come to fruition, or that you will gain that, that opportunity. Nonetheless, if that opportunity comes about, then you should not let it go. As he said once, he says the opportunities, they pass like the clouds. They don't stay around long. And this is perhaps why Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam, he also advised his children, he would tell them, Ya bunay, badir al-fursa qabla an takuna ghussa, wa badir al-birr, fa inna al-a'mal al-birr fursatun. He would tell them, he says, take advantage of the opportunities. So badir al-fursa. So if an opportunity comes your way, take advantage of that opportunity before it becomes a regret or a headache. Sometimes that happens, that an opportunity comes available for us, perhaps a raise, a job, or getting a house, or getting a car. Different opportunities comes our way. And whenever we do not take advantage of that opportunity, later we begin to regret that, oh, why didn't I do this? How come I didn't take advantage of that opportunity? Oh, this is past me. So Imam Ali, he says, no, take advantage of that opportunity. And the best of opportunities, as Imam Ali, he points out, he says, وَبَادِرِ الْبِرِّ. He says, initiate righteous deeds, good deeds. Do something good. He says, for surely that righteous deed, فَإِنَّ أَعْمَالِ الْبِرِّ فُرْصَةٌ, because good deeds is an opportunity. In Sermon 32, Imam Ali alayhi salatu, he gives a different perspective about opportunities, or at least that person who is an opportunist. And it's not one that is painted in a positive light, as we stated that Imam Ali, the framework for Sermon 32, is one in which he's speaking about when there is social, political strife, there's fitna, there's tension, and a person goes forth, as he states, وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَطْلُبُ الدُّنْيَا بِعَمَلِ الْآخِرَةِ وَلَا يَطْلُبُ الْآخِرَةَ بِعَمَلِ الدُّنْيَا. This is a very subtle way in which he talks about the opportunists, that they seek this world with actions that are meant for the akhirah, and they don't seek the akhirah with actions that are done in this world. So this person, as we will come to understand, is the opportunist. He has other qualities that we will point out. But before we do so, I want to speak about the personality type that the Myers-Briggs personality typology speaks about. The one that closely matches the opportunist that Imam Ali he speaks about in Sermon 32 of Nahjul Balagha is the extrovert, who is intuitive, also in tune with his feelings, in tune with feelings of other people, and also one who judges others. And again, as I said, this does not mean that the introvert is not an opportunist as well. No, an introvert can be an opportunist. It just so happens that this particular personality typology in the Myers-Briggs assessment, and 60 of the 16 personality types, it fits with what Imam Ali is saying. Because that personality, the extrovert, the intuitive extrovert, which is in tune with feelings, his feelings, other people's feelings, and also someone who is judging, who is judging, making discernment, and choosing a particular action to do. It says that this person is often goal-orientated. And they will have an agenda. They will have something that they want to fulfill. And according to the Myers-Briggs, it says if this person sees that there's not opportunity to effectively execute their agenda and their plan, then they quickly become restless. They become uneasy. They become folks that will perhaps divert from this plan and go to a different plan. These folks are often or at least when it comes to what Imam Ali is speaking about, when he outlines that particular personality type, the opportunist in Sermon 32, as we've already stated, these are people who seek the benefit of the world with the actions that are meant for the akhirah. And they do not seek the akhirah with their actions in this world. These folks also display somewhat of a passive-aggressive personality as well, as Imam Ali, when he describes them in Sermon 32, and I'll just suffice with the English part of that, what he states when he describes them. He says, these people, they're calm. So that means that also they could be an introvert as well. So they're calm with dignity, and they appear as folks with dignity. They don't rush into things. Take very small steps, again, calculated steps, because this person is like discerning and in tune with others, and judging and calculating their actions. So they will take small steps, as Imam Ali says. They hold up their clothes and they embellish their bodies, they embellish the way they look, as he says, for the appearance of trust. So they gain the trust of people by the way they carry themselves, as Imam Ali, he describes in Sermon 32. And if we understand this correctly, what these folks are doing, the opportunists, is appealing to social norm. So what Imam Ali he's concerned about is what this personality is like within a society that is supposed to be based on the principles of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So that person will appear to uphold all those social norms, to gain the trust of others. Likewise, he says that this person, when you look at them, or at least you assess them deeply, what Imam Ali says, وَاتَّخَذَ سِتْرَ اللَّهِ ذَرِيعَةً إِلَى الْمَعْصِيَةِ, that they take the covering of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as an opportunity to sin. So as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala covers their shortcomings or covers their sins that most people are not seeing because they're calculating, they're embellishing themselves to appeal to social norms. And that covering, that cloaking that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does for them, he says they take it as an opportunity to sin. These individuals, if we want to understand who they are during the time of Imam Ali alayhi these are people who were forgers of hadith, who played and manipulated the statements of Rasulullah, or diverted or covered over certain statements. The very people that we taught about in the Quran, in Surah Hujurat, that is chapter 49 of the Quran, verse 6, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O you who believe, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu idha ja'akum in ja'akum fasiqun binnaba'in fatabayyanu, that if someone who is a sinner comes to you with news, comes to you with some sort of message, oh, well, this is what the Prophet said, or this is what the Imam said, or this is what someone said. So make sure that you clarify who that person is. Or according to some of the commentaries on this particular verse, it says, make sure you discern that message. You see whether that message or that news that they're bringing is sound, is correct. And if it's with regards to the statements, the hadith of Rasulullah, the hadith of Ahlul Bayt alayhim afsalatu wasalam, one of the measures that we should take to find out whether that statement is correct or not is the Quran. You match it up against the Quran. If it contradicts the Quran, and the Prophet has said this, the Imams alayhim afsalatu wasalam has said this, that if it contradicts the Quran, then you put it aside. Because the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the words of the Ahlul Bayt, the Imams alayhim afsalatu wasalam, will not contradict the Quran. So Allah says that that person who comes who is sinful, again, and we can take it in this context as that opportunist, because the opportunists during the time of Imam Ali, they were people who were forging hadith. So if they come to you with news, then you should make clear and make sure that what they're saying is correct. Otherwise, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states, He says, otherwise you will fall into a state of jahala, that you will be giving something that is not true, that is not correct. It will be based upon falsehood, it will be based upon your ignorance, and then you will end up doing something which you regret. So these folks during the time of Imam Ali, the hadith forgers, and particularly what we can see, as some of the scholars, they've done quite a bit of research on this, that the Umayyads, they were masters of this, and particularly Muawiyah, to have hadith forged in favor of the Umayyads and their political authority, that they should be the ones that lead, or that their authority is legitimate. Some of the motives behind, again, these forgers of hadith, as some of our scholars have written about, they said the motives were based on their beliefs, the opportunists, what they believe themselves. Because if they aligned themselves with one group, then they wanted to push the agenda of that group. Politically, in terms of power, they had motives, power motives. They had motives with regards to belief. Also, some folks, as our scholars have outlined, and this is a very long discussion, which we're not going to get into any detail in this session, that unfortunately sometimes there were people who embraced Islam or embraced the faith or pretended to be Muslims simply to destroy it from the inside, or simply to divert people from the path of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and even at times the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afsalatu wasalam. With regards to the forgers of hadith for the Bani Umayyah, one of the scholars, Sunni scholars by the name of Muhammad ibn Saif al-Madaini, who wrote a book by the name of Al-Ahdath, the events, circumstances. This is the name of his book, Al-Ahdath. He documents very well in there what Muawiyah did, the plan that Muawiyah did that brought about the different forging of hadith, or hadith which turned out to be in favor of the Umayyads, Bani Umayyads and their rule. And of course, thereafter, the Abbasids did the same thing as well. But in the book Al-Ahdath, and Madaini, he writes, and he documents how Muawiyah, he sent a message out to his Ummal, out to the people who are working for him, who he had appointed in certain positions of authority and governance. He sent out to them to disregard Ali, disregard Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali bin Abi Talib, to not put any credibility in him, to disregard his Shia, those who are following him, do not give them any credence, and wherever they are, if they are under any place that is under the influence of Muawiyah, the Umayyads, then they should also be suppressed. According to Madaini, this message that Muawiyah he sent out, it led to the cursing of Amir al-Mu'mineen from the minbars, especially in Damascus, especially in Syria at that time. Likewise, Madaini, he says that Muawiyah, he ordered that anyone or any statement about the praise of Uthman, about the fada'il of Uthman, it should be collected. So Muawiyah began to collect these, some of them placed or made into hadith, and what Madaini says that there was a proliferation, meaning the hadith or the statements about Muawiyah, about Uthman, who was basically the cornerstone of the Umayyad dynasty, that they began to grow. There was a lot of things about him. And likewise, anyone who is the lover of Ahlul Bayt, anyone who mentioned the love of Ahlul Bayt, that they were within the places where it was under Muawiyah's control, the Umayyad's control, financially they were put aside, they were not being helped. And this is something we see even in many of the texts as well, that when we examine many of the texts, there's still the fada'il of Amir al-Mu'mineen and Ahlul Bayt, but according to some researchers or scholars, there used to be much more. To give an example of some of the things that were going on, the kind of forgery of the hadith, And again, this is a long discussion, which we cannot get through all of it at this particular point. But one of the examples is that the hadith of Saddul Bab. Again, we know that the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as we know, he was ordered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to close the doors to all of that led into the masjid, except for his door, and of course the door of Fatima Zahra salamu alayha, the door of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the door of the Ahlul Bayt. So the only door that was connected, again, the little houses that were connected to the Masjid al-Nabi, they were all sealed except for the door of Fatima Zahra. And some of the old writings and the texts, the hadith of Sad, what we call Sad al-Bab, to close and seal the doors, they said that no, they were all closed except for the door of Abu Bakr, the door of Aisha, that her door was left open, that this was a fadilat for Abu Bakr and his house, rather than the fadilat for the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus salatu wassalam. Of course, in some of the more edited texts, that it was taken out. Likewise, and when we understand this, likewise, there's a tradition that was also forged, where it says the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told Aisha, and he was indicating and pointing towards two people, that these two people yamutun ala ghayri millati, that these two people will die not on my path, meaning not as a follower of the Prophet. That hadith or that ishara or indication was towards Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, one of the persons that was indicated, na'udhu billah. And this is the type of hadith or traditions that were being forged by the Umayyads. And this is why there was a surprise in Damascus, that when Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib was martyred in the Masjid al-Kufa, they were surprised. It was like, what? Ibn Abi Talib, he was praying, he was martyred in the masjid. They were surprised, because these are the type of traditions that were being forged. The folks who were the opportunists taking money and wealth to forge these hadith. When we think about it, exactly as Imam Ali is saying, that these are people who are seeking the dunya bi'amal al-akhirah, because to collect the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to teach the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is a noble cause. It is a noble action. It is good. If we taught someone, as the Prophet says, "Qulu la ilaha illallah tuflihu," say la ilaha illallah and you will be successful. If we taught people what the Prophet said is that an-nadhafa nisfu din, that cleanliness is half of your deen. These are good things. These are noble teachings. And it is something which is considered to be ibadah, to teach someone. However, these opportunists, they were taking an action like this to teach the hadith of Rasulullah, or what was supposedly be the hadith of Rasulullah, because they were forged and not correct and not true, which in its outer appearance is a action of the akhirah, to teach. But what they were seeking was this dunya, because they were being paid to make these up. Another example is one where Amr ibn As, where he narrates or says that the Prophet of Allah said that no one from Bani Abi Talib would be my successor. Meaning that no one, again, aiming at Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, that how can he be the rightful Khalifa? When the Prophet of Allah, na'udhu billah, as he's stating, as he's attributing, said that no one from Bani Abi Talib would be the Khalifa, be my successor. In another case, in another forged hadith, and this is very interesting, where Amr ibn As, he relates back to Wizad al-Makhzumi, where he states that Wizad al-Makhzumi was with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Rasulullah was kissing his face and speaking highly of him, of Wizad, To the point that Wizad, he assumed, according to his narration, that he thought that, well, I'm perhaps the best of the ummah. I'm one of the best followers of Rasulullah. And then he asked Rasulullah, Wizad al-Makhzumi, he asked Rasulullah, according to this tradition, he said, am I better or Abu Bakr? And the Prophet ﷺ responded that Abu Bakr. Wizad then asked, am I better or Umar? The Prophet of Allah, he responded, Umar. Then Wizad, he asked, am I better or Uthman? And the Prophet of Allah, according to this tradition, he said that Uthman. And Wizad al-Makhzumi, according to one of the very renowned and very precise scholars, Sunni scholars, Shaykh al-Albani, he says that, Wizad is a person who is thiqah, who is a reliable narrator. However, this same hadith, Al-Albani, he says that this hadith is mawdu'ah. He includes it in his book where he collects all of the hadith that are invalid and mawdu'ah that have been forged. So this was the plight of the opportunists to create hadith like this, or likewise to downplay other hadith, to suppress the hadith about the fadilat of Ahlul Bayt alayhim wasalam, or to distort the understanding and meaning of other hadith where the Prophet of Allah, he was critical of certain individuals. One of those hadith, for example, that even exists now in Sahih Bukhari, or Sahih Muslim, where the Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is noted by Ibn Abbas, and Ibn Abbas said, I was playing outside with the children, his children, one day, and the Prophet of Allah was coming along. He saw the Prophet coming, so Ibn Abbas, he went around the corner, kind of behind the door. He says, but the Prophet of Allah came and tapped Ibn Abbas on the shoulder. He says, come. اذهب ادعو لي معاوية. Go and call Muawiyah for me. So Ibn Abbas, he says, I went, and then I came back and told the Prophet of Allah, huwa ya'kul. He's not coming because he's eating. So the Prophet of Allah again tells Ibn Abbas, he says, اذهب ادعو لي معاوية. He says, go and tell Muawiyah to come. That I need to speak with him, or he has some business with the Muawiyah, he needs to address him about something. So Ibn Abbas, he says, he goes back, and again, Muawiyah does not come, he refuses to come. Ibn Abbas, he tells him, he says, hu ya'kul, he's eating. Then the Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, la ashba Allahu batna, that may Allah not satisfy his stomach. May it not be filled. So this hadith, again, in order to raise the status of the Umayyads, this, at one point, certain scholars, they say, oh, well, it's a weak hadith, but then they cannot, again, hold that position to prove that truly it is weak. They say, oh, well, this hadith is painting Muawiyah in a good light, that, may Allah give him abundance. But when we look at the reality of this hadith, it's not a dua in favor of him. Yes, there are two people, according to Imam Ali, a very beautiful statement where he says that two people will never be filled. He says, talib al-ilm wa talib al-dunya wa thirwa. So the one who seeks knowledge will not be filled. Every time, the more that this person increases or seeks knowledge and gains knowledge, then they want more. Likewise, as Imam Ali says, that person who is seeking dunya and obtain dunya and wealth, says the more they obtain, the more they want. And it's not in a positive light. Seeking knowledge is not the same of seeking dunya and wealth. As Imam Musa Kadhim alayhi hafizahullah also states, he says, Inna Allaha yubghidu batna alladhi la yashba. He says that stomach that does not fill is disliked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these are the type of opportunists. And even today we have opportunists. Of course, those who are forging hadith may not exist today, but we have folks who rely on and they use weak hadith, and with various motives in order to, again, boost a particular type of thought to booster or to support a particular type of power structure or system. Use weak hadith, things which are unproven. And do they not refer back to that check and balance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He states in the Quran that if someone comes to you with news, فَتَبَيَّنُوا, make sure that it is correct. That balance and that check and balance that the Prophet of Allah and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salatu wasalam, they state it by checking what is narrated from them against the Quran. If it agrees with the Quran, then take it, accept it this is what they said. If it disagrees with the Quran, then put it aside. So those opportunists even today exist by presenting such ideas or maybe statements that don't have solid and strong proof. But this doesn't mean that we should not turn away from opportunities, but it means that we should take advantage of the best of opportunity. Opportunities to do good. As Imam Ali he points out, that a'mal al-birr fursa. Do not let any moment of goodness, the opportunity of goodness, of doing goodness, no matter how small that opportunity to do goodness, don't let it escape us. Whether it is to give charity, to help someone out, even as we understand that even making a mu'min happy, making them happy, this is the opportunity of khair, of birr, of doing a good deed. And not take the opportunity or be an opportunist for wrong reasons, to create division, to create fitna. And we see both characteristics around the events of Karbala and the aftermath of Karbala. In one of those instances, we see as the caravan of the Ahlul Bayt was being ushered into Damascus, one of the persons who was in Damascus was not from Damascus, but was there on some business, by the name of Sahl ibn Sa'ad. He was someone who had seen Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And so while he was in Damascus, he saw that there were people, some people were partying, they were beating the drums, they had decorated their homes, decorated the street. But there were very few individuals who seemed to be sad, almost silent, not saying anything. So Sahl ibn Sa'ad, he went to them, he said, what is going on? What is this? Is there an Eid in Damascus that I don't know about? What is happening here? Why are people celebrating? So one person told Sa'ad, and this is after he said that he was a person, Ra'aytu Muhammadan sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that I encountered the Prophet. I sat with the Prophet. I listened to the statements of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So that person who spoke to Sahl ibn Sa'ad, he said, Ya Sahl, ما أعجبك السماء لا تمطر دما والأرض لا تنخسف بأهلها. That, O Sahl, is it not strange that on this day that the heavens are not raining blood and the earth has not opened up to swallow the people, to swallow its inhabitants? So Sahl ibn Sa'ad, he says, why? That what is going on? لماذا? And so Sahl ibn Sa'ad, he was told, he says, هذا رأس الحسين عترة محمد صلى الله عليه وآله يحدى من عرض العراق. Okay, so Sahl, the head of Imam Hussein, the head of Hussein, the family of Rasulullah is being ushered into Damascus from Iraq at this moment. Then Sahl, he says, وَعَجَبًا يحدى رأس الحسين والناس يفرحون. He says, woe be unto these people that the head of Imam Hussein is coming into Damascus and the people are happy, they're celebrating this. Then he asks that from which bab, from which gate is the head of Imam Hussein being brought in? So they told him it's from a gate that is called Bab Sa'a. So Sahl ibn Sa'ad, he rushed to this gate, he rushed to this entrance to Damascus. And as he rushed to this entrance of Damascus, he saw the heads of the shuhada upon spears. He saw the women and children in chains. He saw Imam Zayn al-Abidin in chains. He went and he saw this one young girl. This is Sukaina. He asked her, what is her name? She said, Sukaina. And then he asked that, what can I do for you? That I am someone who has met your grandfather Rasulullah. So Sukaina, she told Sahal, he says, to tell this person, tell the person who is ushering the heads, to take the heads before us, so that the people, they will look at the heads of our shuhada, and they will not focus on the women. So Sahl ibn Sa'ad, he went to the person who was ushering the heads into Damascus, and he paid him some gold to bring the heads forward, so that the people would not look upon and gaze upon the women of the household of Rasulullah. Sahl ibn Sa'ad, he said at that moment, this person, he did this. He began to usher the heads before the women. And it's stated, as is narrated about this incident, when they brought the heads into the castle, when they brought it into the place where Yazid, he was sitting, one of the persons who was bringing the heads, who was ushering his heads, he began to say, أوقر ركابي فضة وذهبا إني قتلت سيد المحجبا قتلت خير الناس أما وأبا وخيرهم إذ ينسب النسبا. Look at this line. He says that, oh, fill my bags with gold and silver, for surely I have killed the master of those who have walked this earth. I have killed the best of people, the best of mankind from the best of mothers and best of fathers. I have killed him. I killed the best one, the person with the best of lineage. They said that when Yazid, again, this person, he's an opportunist. Look at him. He's saying because he is martyred, because he was involved in the martyrdom of Imam Hussein and the Shuhada of Karbala, he's saying fill his bags with gold and silver. But Yazid, according to what happened at that moment, he looked at him. He says, but you think that this is the best of mankind? أنه خير الناس لما قتلته. So why did you kill him? Because if you think that he is the best of mankind. And this person, this lane, he responded, he says, I did so رجوت جائزة منك. He says, I did it because I wanted to seek reward from you, from Yazid, from the Khalifa. Look at this individual who is an opportunist. Sahl ibn Sa'ad, he took the opportunity to do something good, to cover the women and children so that the eyes would not look upon the women and children, to bring the heads of the shuhada forward. But this la'in, he was an opportunist seeking gold and silver from Yazid. And Yazid, he was angry that this person was calling Imam Hussein khairun nas wa khairul mansab, that he comes from the best of lineage. So Yazid, he ordered his head to be cut off. He beheaded this person. He says that this was the jaza that he deserved. إن لله وإنا إليه راجعون وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون اللهم بحق هذا المجلس الحسيني اغفر ذنوبنا واستر عيوبنا وقضي حوائجنا واشفي مرضانا وارحم أمواتنا وعجل فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان واجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره والمستشهدين بين يديه وتحت لوائه بحق محمد وآله الطاهرين. ماتم حسين.
Inshallah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Inshallah, if we can recite another Surah Fatiha for the marhum of our sponsors, Mirza Mansoor Hassan Beg, Mirza Amir Hassan Beg, Sayyid Hamid Akbar, Sayyid Nasser Hussein Bukhari, Sayyid Sadiq Hussein Rizvi, Mirza Mazhar Beg, Amna Begu, Shah Jahan Begum, Mehar Jahan, Rashid Akbar, Sayyid Siddiqa Bukhari, Narjis Iqbal, and the marhum of Dukhtaran Mansoor Hassan Beg. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. Thank you all for joining the program. If inshallah in the order program there will be matam after the speech inshallah.